At the Washington summit with President Zelensky, the cameras captured smiles, handshakes, and promises of unity. But if you listen closely, what's missing is louder than what was said. No ceasefire, no roadmap, no end game. And that raises a fundamental question. Are we entering the slow burn of a frozen war, or are we witnessing the quiet countdown to a new escalation? Because when diplomacy delivers no breakthrough, the real action often moves underground, into strategy rooms, into military planning, and into the shadows of space and cyberspace. Tonight we ask what this means for Ukraine, for Moscow, and especially for the United States. On the surface, Washington tried to project unity. According to Reuters, both President Trump and President Zelensky emphasized their determination to continue resisting Russian aggression. The summit produced images of solidarity, speeches about democracy, and pledges of ongoing support. But beneath the rhetoric, the gaps were clear. There was no announcement of a ceasefire initiative, no new framework for negotiations, and no tangible path toward ending the conflict. This is not just a diplomatic detail. In international politics, the absence of deliverables speaks as loudly as the presence of statements. Think about it. If after days of talks the best leaders can offer is more of the same, it suggests either deep disagreement behind closed doors or a strategic decision to postpone resolution. Which one is worse? And here is the real cliffhanger. If Washington cannot deliver clarity now, what message does that send to Moscow, to Kiev, and to NATO? It is tempting to see this war as purely geopolitical, but let us look at the economics. Because behind every tank and missile there is a balance sheet, and those numbers matter more than we often admit. According to the Financial Times, global energy flows remain deeply shaped by the conflict. And while Western governments announced bold sanctions against Moscow, Russian oil and gas still find their way into the market, often through indirect channels, rebranded cargoes, or rerouted shipments via third countries like India or Turkey. That means the Kremlin continues to earn hard currency, even as it claims to be under siege. And when you compare these revenues with the rising costs for European consumers, the paradox becomes clearer. What looks like punishment on paper often translates into resilience for Moscow and pain for Western households. Meanwhile, on the other side of the equation, American and European defense industries are experiencing record orders. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Rheinmetall in Germany, and smaller contractors across Eastern Europe are reporting soaring demand for artillery shells, drones, and missile systems. Billions of dollars flow into contracts, production lines expand, and shareholders celebrate quarterly results boosted not by commercial airliners or peaceful exports, but by the machinery of war. And Ukraine itself remains dependent on constant injections of financial aid just to keep its government functioning, from salaries of teachers and nurses to pensions and basic infrastructure. As reported by Reuters, over half of Ukraine's annual budget in 2023 came from Western support, mostly from the United States and the European Union. This creates a structural dependency. If the money stops, the state collapses. So ask yourself, is that a recipe for a quick resolution, or for a prolonged stalemate where aid becomes leverage? Here lies the paradox. The longer the war continues, the more certain sectors benefit. Moscow leverages high energy prices to fund its state budget, turning every spike in oil or gas into ammunition for its treasury. Western defense contractors see soaring revenues, creating jobs in American and European districts where politicians are quick to highlight how support for Ukraine is also support for local workers. Political elites on both sides convert this conflict into leverage, whether it is Russia pressuring Europe over winter gas flows or Washington demanding unity from NATO allies by tying military assistance to alliance credibility. And here is the uncomfortable truth. When wars evolve into economic ecosystems, the incentive to close them quickly weakens. As Al Jazeera has highlighted, Russian analysts openly frame the continuation of the war as a way to drain Western economies. Every month of fighting consumes Western stockpiles of weapons and ammunition, which must be replaced at high cost. Every shipment to Kiev means another bill for US or European taxpayers. And in Washington, lawmakers increasingly debate not whether to support Ukraine, but how to justify the expense. Republicans and Democrats frame it differently, yet both sides admit the cost is massive. For the average American, that means questions about why billions go overseas while infrastructure at home crumbles. For Moscow, it means sitting back and watching the political fractures widen. But the real cliffhanger is this: if a frozen war generates steady flows of money, influence, and strategic leverage, who really has an incentive to break the deadlock? Consider the incentives. For Russia, prolongation buys time. It stabilizes their control of occupied territories, and it drains Western resolve. For Western defense industries, continuation means profit, not loss. For Kiev, even though the human cost is unbearable, the flow of aid ensures survival, so long as the conflict remains active enough to keep Western capitals engaged. Do you see the trap? Everyone keeps moving, everyone keeps spending, but no one moves toward the finish line. And now think about it from your perspective. As an American, what does this mean for your wallet, your gas bill, your taxes? Rising fuel prices, higher food costs, and trillions in national debt accumulating over time. The economic engine of war is not just about distant contracts and boardrooms. It lands directly on Main Street. So the next time you hear a politician say we must stay the course, ask yourself, whose course are we really staying on? The path to peace, or the path to an endless flow of money, where the biggest winners are those least interested in ending the fight? That question is not abstract, it is personal. And it is the reason why the economic dimension is not just background noise. It is the core driver of why this conflict might never end quickly. We have recently explored in depth what a frozen war really looks like, so here's just a quick reminder. Frozen does not mean stable. It means a line of contact that rarely shifts, but never disappears. It means resources are drained slowly, tensions remain alive, and the risk of flare-ups never vanishes. If you want the full breakdown, we've covered it in a dedicated video, but for now, keep this in mind. A frozen conflict locks everyone into uncertainty. For Ukraine, it means indefinite dependence on Western support. For NATO, it means a permanent flashpoint on its border. And for Russia, it means leverage without resolution. According to the BBC, experts call this the gray zone of international politics, where no one wins outright, but no one steps back either. So here's the cliffhanger. If Washington and Moscow settle into this frozen pattern, the war may disappear from headlines, but Americans will still feel its effects through higher prices, taxpayer funding for NATO deployments, and constant low-level crises. Do you think the public is ready for that, or will frustration eventually push leaders to change course? If the frozen war is one path, the other is escalation, and this scenario is not just theory. NATO intelligence, as reported by the BBC, has tracked Russian troop movements near the Belarusian border, suggesting that Moscow keeps options open for sudden offensives. The Institute for the Study of War in Washington has pointed out that Russia has shifted tactics, mixing conventional operations with cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns, creating a volatile environment where one miscalculation could ignite a larger clash. And here is where the danger lies. Escalation does not need to mean nuclear war or tanks rolling into Poland. It can start smaller, through a strike on Ukrainian infrastructure that spills over into neighboring NATO states, or through cyber attacks targeting Western power grids and satellites. Do you remember the reports from the New York Times about Russian jamming of GPS signals in Scandinavia? That was not an isolated case. It was a test of how far Moscow can push without triggering Article 5, the NATO clause that an attack on one is an attack on all. And think about the timing. With the US elections approaching, any crisis abroad has the power to shift domestic politics. Would Moscow benefit from testing Washington's resolve during a campaign? Absolutely. Would NATO risk being caught divided, with some allies reluctant to escalate? Without a doubt. That is why the possibility of sudden escalation is not alarmism, it is strategy. From Putin's perspective, pressure points are everywhere, and the longer the West believes the war is merely stuck, the more vulnerable it becomes to being surprised. Here is the mini recap. Escalation is not only about massive invasions, it is about constant probing, hybrid warfare, and the risk that one spark, intentional or accidental, forces the United States and NATO into a confrontation they hope to avoid. And so the question becomes, which is more dangerous? The frozen war that quietly drains resources, or the sudden flare-up that shatters the illusion of control? While television cameras capture the handshake in Washington, the real front line is shifting far above and far below to space and cyberspace. According to The Guardian, Russian forces have stepped up electronic warfare, jamming satellite signals over Ukraine, and in some cases spilling into civilian aviation routes in Eastern Europe. NATO, aware of these risks, has already declared that an attack on space assets could fall under Article 5, the cornerstone of the alliance that treats an attack on one as an attack on all. This matters more than most people realize. Satellites are not just about GPS maps or making a phone call on vacation. They synchronize financial transactions in Wall Street. They power global communications. They feed data to weather systems. And they are the eyes that warn of incoming missile launches, disrupt them, even for a short time, and the ripple effect spreads across every corner of modern life. Think about it. If tomorrow GPS timing were disabled for just a few hours, air traffic would be thrown into chaos, shipping would grind to a halt, and trading floors could not operate. Now extend that logic to a deliberate strike. This is not science fiction. Both Russia and China have tested anti-satellite weapons, demonstrating they can physically destroy orbiting systems. Washington knows it, Moscow knows it, and the public rarely hears about it. Cyber warfare works the same way, just more quietly. A frozen war could mean constant low-level attacks, like ransomware on utilities or disinformation campaigns targeting elections. An escalated war could mean blackouts in major cities, banks paralyzed, or hospitals losing access to digital records. Do you remember when the Colonial Pipeline was hacked in 2021, causing gas shortages across several U.S. states? That was a criminal group, not a nation state, and yet it showed how fragile the system is. Now imagine that level of disruption as part of state strategy. Here's where the real cliffhanger lies. If the most dangerous battlefield is invisible to the naked eye, how would the public even recognize the signs of escalation before it is too late? Would the first clue be a headline about downed satellites, or would it be when your phone no longer works, your bank card is declined, or the lights simply go out? Let's pull this together. The Washington summit produced smiles, but no solutions. Economically, the conflict sustains itself because too many players profit or gain leverage from its continuation. Strategically, two scenarios remain open. One is the frozen war, a draining stalemate that bleeds resources and unity over time. The other is escalation, whether through military offensives, political pressure, or technological warfare in space and cyber domains. And remember, these two scenarios are not mutually exclusive. A conflict can freeze for months, then flare suddenly, then freeze again. That is precisely what makes it so dangerous. For the United States, this means the war in Ukraine is not a distant problem, but a direct challenge to its economy, its alliances, and its technological infrastructure. According to the New York Times, even minor disruptions in Eastern Europe have already rippled into American markets and politics. Imagine the impact if the next phase involves space or cyber domains. And here is the final reflection. A frozen war may seem safer than a hot one, but in reality, it is a slow-motion crisis that never goes away. An escalation may seem sudden, but it can also be the predictable outcome of years of unresolved tension. So which future are we heading toward? Perhaps both. The calm after Washington should not comfort Americans. It should remind them that the real dangers are often the ones you cannot see. And if you want to understand not just the geopolitics, but also how to prepare your family for both scenarios, make sure you are subscribed and have notifications on. Because in our next video, we are taking this analysis into the practical world of prepping, explaining what endurance looks like in a frozen war and what survival looks like if escalation comes. If you have watched until now, you are not just scrolling, You are thinking ahead, and that makes you part of the conversation.